A huge development has just been revealed in the Boston Bruins trade reports and rumors revolving around Pavel Zacha. We're going to be breaking it down, going over these latest updates, as well as more teams that have been involved, and how Marco Sturm's evaluation of this team thus far has a major impact on what a deal could look like. We're going to be breaking it all down here in this video. Before we do jump into it though, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't already, be sure to hit the sub button if you're looking for every single bit of your Bruins news. We're going to have it right here. And with these reports continue to escalate and a very interesting start to the Bruins season, you will not want to miss what this team has in store over the next couple of weeks. And like I said, we're going to be giving you every single update here on the channel. But we need to jump straight into this. First of all, going over a quote from Lyle Richardson. This is what he had to say about Pavel Zacha. The Maple Leafs are still trying to fill the void of right wing on their first line following Mitch Marner's departure. They could slot Zacha at the wing or move Matthew Knies or Bobby McMann to right wing. However, they lack sufficient cap space, first rounders, and prospects to entice the Bruins. Now, this is another team added already into this saga where we know the Montreal Canadiens are involved. We know the Vancouver Canucks are involved. We know there's many more teams involved in such a deal with the Bruins for Pavel Zacha, but having the Maple Leafs involved once again, a team that is not so far apart on previous trades. We remember Fraser Minten jumping over to this team in exchange for Brandon Carlo and also getting a first-rounder in that deal. One that certainly did help out the Bruins in a very positive light, as good as Fraser Minten's been, plus a first-round pick. The Bruins have once again adding a familiar team to their trade list for Pavel Zacha. Now, Zacha once again has been in multiple reports over the last little while, stemming from this summer, and now having this market continuing to heat up is putting the Bruins in a bit of a hot seat at this moment and making a decision, and making a very important one at that, as multiple teams are going to be involved now, meaning that this trade value is going to only increase because the demand is increasing. So, we've mentioned a little bit here on the channel that this deal is really all about what time the Bruins are ready to make said move, if at all. They're not overly enticed to make this move. They don't have to make this move. And at that, they're more likely to extend Pavel Zacha than a trade. But like I said, if more teams are involved, more trade value is going to come from Pavel Zacha, with many teams fighting for him. And the NHL not really having quite a few centers here, as we've seen previous years on the trade market. So this is certainly something that the Bruins need to think about. But as Zacha is in the third or fourth year of his contract, that $19 million deal, of course, it's a fair number. That means several teams will show interest. Beyond Toronto, the Hurricanes, the Wild, the Canadiens, and the Rangers, and also Canucks have all been mentioned as possible suitors. Clubs either looking for center depth or top six scoring help. And we've already seen the Montreal Canadiens be one. We've seen the Rangers partially be a little bit of one, and the Canucks have also been one. Now adding the Leafs to this, I would argue that the Rangers are not so much involved with this deal due to them being, frankly, really bad this year. But going out of the Minnesota Wild as well, they need middle six scoring, not so much a center. Every team here has shown that they need a guy like Pavel Zacha, meaning that more teams, more trades, more players are going to be kind of in this discussion to the Boston Bruins as a whole. Now, with all of this coming out once again, we're still getting more information in the trade value for Pavel Zacha, as we still really don't know at this point. We know that it could involve a prospect. We know that it could involve a first-round pick, and it depends at what point the Bruins are really trying to trade him, if at all, like I mentioned. But closer towards the trade deadline, you're going to get a lot more teams being desperate for a move, as the kind of pool of players like Pavel Zacha across the NHL will go down. So the Bruins can hold on to Zacha for as long as they want. Of course, there's absolutely no need to trade him, and I think the way that he's been playing this year, the Bruins don't really want to trade him, but, in the best interest of what's going forward, how important it will be to get better players going forward, future assets for your guys like James Hagens, Dean Letourneau in the future, but Will Zellers as well, all of these younger guys. The Bruins need to certainly explore this. I don't think they can put this to the side and really go about it as something that they cannot do when it comes down to it, because when you're looking at this here, continuing on with this trade value side of things, given these factors, which involve, of course, the deal that he is, the play style that he has, and kind of everything that leads up to the point where he is right now, Zacha could fetch a promising NHL prospect and either a draft pick or a quality prospect. The draft pick could be a first rounder, depending on when the Bruins put him on the market and how many teams get into a bidding for his services. So kind of like I said, it will depend if it's closer to the trade deadline, whether it is what we saw before the season started around this American Thanksgiving, early, I should say early January, late December, when, before the roster freeze for the NHL. There's a lot of kind of assets and kind of pieces that will matter and have an impact on how a trade does come to fruition if the Bruins do throw out here Pavel Zacha. And it is seeming like more and more likely that over the coming days and weeks, we're going to see a lot more information diving into the depths of a trade and how things really do play out, because we can't forget that, yes, Zacha's been very good this season. Zacha's been an important piece of this team. The second line has been very good for this Bruins team, but this year was really not supposed to be the year that they're going for it all, of course. We know that the future has been the big piece of this team building over the last few years, and even though this year I said this team is going to be a playoff team, I still do think that Pavel Zacha is not necessarily going to be the piece that will make that, or make or break that decision for the Bruins. And I do want to pull up this as well from Pierre LeBrun, kind of going over the idea and the idea we've been behind it for the last little while. He said the Canucks did indeed reach out to the Bruins in the summer to see if he was available, but what I'm being told in terms of the Bruins is that they view Zacha as a long-term fit. Don't be surprised if they try to extend him. So, like I said, there's a lot of things here on the table for the Bruins, which them wanting to keep Zacha will only increase the trade value that he does have. Will only increase every kind of, deal that would come towards the Bruins to have to up their value. So whether it is, like I mentioned in previous videos, let's just say a first rounder plus Jonathan Lekkerimäki, like I mentioned from the Vancouver Canucks video, there's a lot of options that do come out for this, but there still is a lot of options that the Bruins will have, and they have a big say in what they want in return here from teams across the NHL. And like I said, the second line's been a big piece of this. Victor Arvidsson, Casey Middlestat, and Pavel Zacha, they've been arguably the most efficient line this entire season. The first line's been very good lately. They've been the best line over the past little while, but consistently over this entire season, if you're going game by game, it has been the second line, especially after they did healthy scratch Casey Middlestat and him come back with a kind of a new mindset, getting shot out of a cannon here. It's a very good way to go off of this and show that this line, what they can really be used for over the next coming parts of the season. And with Pavel Zacha at his age, only 28 years old, a second-line center, can play the wing, $4.75 million for 2 more years. A lot of teams are going to be looking for that. They're going to be trying to retain value. A lot of teams, or I should say, are going to try and get the Bruins to retain value on this deal. But there are so many parts of this that are really just waiting for things to happen, waiting for the Bruins to figure out how their season is going to play out, figure out how their season is really going to come and be by the end of the season, by the trade deadline, if they're going to be in the playoffs, if they're trying to buy, if they're trying to sell. We have to see Don Sweeney make a decision here on this before it gets too late. And I really don't think there is too late of a point, but you want something like this, if it were to be done before the NHL trade deadline, when you're kind of running out of options, when you want to have the team, you want time to negotiate. And for the guy who's getting 12 points in 14 games this season, 2 goals, 10 assists on that second line, he's been phenomenal. And I think there's really no signs of slowing down thus far. And I'm excited to see how his season does progress, first of all, and how this trade discussions do progress. Because, like I said in the last video as well, regarding Pavel Zacha, I'm not someone who thinks that Pavel Zacha needs to be traded whatsoever. If the value is there, I think it's very hard to go and pass it up, specifically because of what you're going to be seeing here in the future for this Bruins team, especially with a guy like Dean Letourneau, a guy like James Hagens, a lot of these younger players coming up over the next few seasons. You want to clear up room for them. You don't want to have them just kind of going away in the bottom 6 for their first year or so. You want to make sure that they're ready to go, getting that momentum and getting on a top pairing if they deserve it and if they can earn it. So there are options here that certainly are going to be discussed over the coming season as well, and a lot of stuff that's going to be really going over it. But this is one big thing to keep in mind before we do finish the video off. Teams like the Canucks are desperate and would likely pay extra to acquire someone like that, but it would put the Bruins in an even worse spot for a takeover, or take longer to recover from. The fewer years wasted from Pastrnak and McAvoy, the better, and Zacha's playing too good to get rid of this earlier. So I feel like this really does sum it up. You can't trade him just yet. I think it's way too early. I mean, November 3rd at this point. You want to wait until, like I mentioned, earliest mid-December to actually figure out what's going on, how this team's really going to be structured later in the season. But it also comes down to teams willing to overpay, teams willing to bid on overpayers, and it really comes down to a big scheme of teams going to try and outbid each other at an extreme overpay. So that's one thing, like I said, that Don Sweeney has to keep in mind here. So let me know what you think about these most recent updates. A lot more stuff coming out, and especially with the Bruins play as of late, seemingly in a very good spot. it will have a big impact on how this does develop later on in the season. So let me know what you think. But that's all I got in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. I'm signing out though. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.